Good evening and welcome. Tonight, a moment inside Congress that stopped the room cold and should stop all of us at home from scrolling past. What began as a routine oversight hearing turned into a blistering indictment of federal immigration enforcement and a warning about where unchecked power can lead. If you are just joining us, do not click away. Subscribe to the channel right now so you do not miss reporting like this that breaks down what power does behind closed doors and how it affects real people.
Thank you, Representative Min. I now recognize Representative Emily Randall from my home state of Washington.
Thank you, Representative Jayapal. Across the country, we all watched from our phones as ICE murdered Renee Nicole Good in the streets of Minneapolis last week. The American people are fearful and angry. They're terrified. They're furious that the Trump administration is unleashing lawless agents on our neighborhoods, raiding an active forest firefighting operation in my district, and shooting people dead who dare to speak up and protest and ask questions. I refuse to let state violence committed by state police, not Minnesota State Police, but state police, go unchecked. Accountability is not optional. In my first year as a member of Congress, I successfully conducted 5 oversight visits to the Tacoma Northwest Detention Center in my district. Once, I was illegally denied entry. During these oversight visits, I heard directly from detainees, some of them legal permanent residents, many who have been in the U.S. for over a decade, that they're being denied proper medical care, that ICE and GEO agents regularly accompany detainees during medical appointments, exposing them to incredibly vulnerable moments in violation of their rights under HIPAA and counter to common practices of community doctors who, like Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, who visited with me once, see criminally incarcerated patients. This is part of a widespread problem that raises serious privacy concerns, serious training concerns, serious oversight concerns. We all saw in a viral video earlier this week an ICE agent following a detained individual into a porta potty. There is no situation that warrants this. This is in line with ICE training, or I should say a lack of training, that is empowering lawless agents across the country. And to make matters even worse, we all are hearing from tribal members, including those in my district, as well as Native people across Minnesota and across the country, that ICE is illegally detaining and targeting Native people for the color of their skin. Tribal members are being detained as leverage to convince tribal nations to sign agreements with ICE for enforcement on their sovereign territory. And that's why I'm an original co-sponsor of the Articles of Impeachment against Secretary Noem. Bad behavior begins at the top. If we want to ensure all individuals are treated with dignity, we have to ensure that there is competent leadership in place, and I have zero faith in Secretary Noem. Let me be clear. Using ICE agents to kill people in the streets is fascism, and I will use all the tools available to fight to defend our democracy and our collective future. New NBS reporting shows that ICE used AI in determining which agents needed how much more training. And in instances where individuals wrote about how badly they wanted to be an ICE officer, they got less training. Chief McCarthy, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the training your police force employs. I'm sure it's better than what we're seeing ICE be given. Are local officers typically trained to record interactions with their cell phones while holding a gun at the same time in the other hand?
Thank you for that question, and no, ma'am, they are not.
Are local officers typically trained to fire their guns into vehicles?
We are trained if we need to fire a weapon into a vehicle. However, most policy, including the state-wide model policy, warns against shooting into moving vehicles.
Yeah. There's probably some de-escalation in between saying please stop and shooting into a vehicle.
Yes, ma'am.
And speaking of de-escalation, are local police officers trained to de-escalate situations, or are they trained to shoot first?
We are trained to de-escalate situations.
So police officers for the city of Minneapolis who are given more training than the federal agents are keeping our communities safe. And I want to thank you for everything that you do to keep our communities safe. Thank you, Madam Chair.
During the hearing, Congresswoman Emily Randall of Washington did not mince words. She spoke not as a politician chasing headlines, but as a lawmaker, describing what she says is a pattern of state violence that Americans are increasingly witnessing through their phones. The killing of Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis last week, allegedly by an ICE agent, became the emotional center of her remarks. Randall framed it not as an isolated tragedy, but as part of a broader collapse of accountability in federal enforcement. Her argument is important because it challenges a common narrative. Federal agents are often portrayed as more trained, more disciplined, and more professional than local police. But Randall flipped that assumption on its head. She detailed her own oversight visits to the Tacoma Northwest Detention Center, where she says detainees, including lawful permanent residents who have lived in the United States for more than a decade, reported being denied proper medical care. Even more alarming, she described ICE and private GEO group agents accompanying detainees into medical appointments, a practice that raises serious questions about privacy rights and federal compliance with basic medical ethics. This is not just about discomfort or inconvenience. Under federal law and long-standing medical norms, patients are entitled to privacy, even when they are incarcerated. Randall pointed out that community doctors, including members of Congress who are physicians themselves, routinely treat incarcerated patients without armed officers hovering over their most vulnerable moments. The implication is clear. This is not about safety, it is about control. And then there was the video that many of you may have already seen, an ICE agent following a detained person into a portable toilet. Randall said flatly, there is no scenario where that is justified. For viewers at home, that matters because it illustrates how dehumanization becomes normalized when oversight disappears. What starts as an exception quietly becomes standard practice. If this kind of reporting matters to you, pause for a second and subscribe. It helps us keep explaining the stories others rush past. This hearing matters because it exposes a fundamental question facing the country. Who watches the watchers when federal power expands and accountability shrinks? When oversight fails, abuses do not stay rare, they spread. And as this hearing showed, lawmakers are increasingly warning that what is being normalized today will define the country tomorrow. We will continue following this story closely. Subscribe so you do not miss the next development, because understanding power is the first step in holding it accountable.